Bonjour à tous. Alors avant tout, merci beaucoup d'être venus si nombreux. Je vais vous expliquer rapidement le déroulement de la matinée. Et puis Maxime introduira Matt. Thank you very much, Matt, to be there. Donc on va avoir 1 heure de présentation de la part de Matt. Ensuite, on enchaînera sur un long Q&A. L'idée, c'est que vous puissiez lui poser toutes les questions que vous avez. S'il y a des difficultés avec l'anglais, comme tout se fera en anglais, il n'y a pas de problème. Il y a Maxime, Nathalie, nos experts SEO qui seront là pour faire le lien, donc il n'y a aucun problème. S'il n'y a plus de place, il y a là-bas un autre espace où tout est retransmis, télé, slide, la vidéo et slide, pour ceux qui ne trouveraient pas des places. Et n'hésitez pas à prendre café, croissant, jus d'orange. La cantine nous accueille chaleureusement. Et merci encore à tous d'être ici et bonne session.
Alors, bonjour à tous, je m'appelle Maxime, donc je travaille à Paris au bureau de Google. Il y a quelques semaines de ça, Olivier qui est ici m'a dit que MadCut c'était de passage en Europe et m'a demandé si on le faisait venir à Paris. Alors évidemment j'ai dit oui, j'ai pensé à vous, j'ai pensé à tous les gens qui font du SEO sur Paris qui auraient envie de le voir. Donc voilà, Matt nous fait le plaisir d'être avec nous aujourd'hui. Don't worry Matt, it's all good, it's in French but it's all good about you. Alors pour ceux qui ne le connaîtraient pas, mais peut-être encore, MadCut, son titre c'est Head of Web Spam Team, donc il s'occupe de l'équipe qui est en charge de protéger un petit peu l'algorithme de Google et de faire que nos résultats restent pertinents et que les gens ne trouvent pas des failles pour le contourner. Peut-être qu'il parlera de ça aujourd'hui. Donc il va faire une présentation assez générale aujourd'hui sur 1 heure qui va parler à la fois de comment marche Google et puis de comment optimiser son site pour Google. Évidemment, c'est le cœur de métier ici. All right, Matt, I hand it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Too loud, not loud enough? Anybody have a strong preference? This is okay. C'est un plaisir de vous parler aujourd'hui. Mon français est horrible, so I might switch to English. It's really a pleasure to be here today. People have already made me feel very welcome. I've been geeking out learning about the Ubuntu-based system that they use to record videos here. It's really neat. It's also a very cool space, so very glad to be here. Looking forward to talking for a little while, and then really looking forward to questions. And if anybody has questions, feel free to jump in at any point, because it can be kind of boring if all I'm doing is talking, and everybody's like, oh, I didn't want to hear about that. I wanted to ask about this particular thing. So we'll have at least half an hour for questions. But if something doesn't make sense, or if I can do something better, or you'd like something explained in a different way, please just put up your hand, shout out. So I'm going to talk today about 2 different topics: how Google works and how you can do better in Google, how you can rank higher in Google. Probably a lot of the people are interested in how to do better in Google. I don't know how many people want to know how Google works. Let me get a feel for the audience. How many people, this is the participation part, how many people are on Twitter? Oh, wow. Okay. How many people are not on Twitter? A few people are willing to admit it. Yes. I am very productive, right? We get a lot of work done. Okay, so it's a pretty savvy audience. That's my litmus test, you know, how much people spend time on the internet. So I'll talk a little bit about how Google works, but I'll try to spend a fair amount of time on how to do better in Google. There's 3 things that you need to do really well if you want to be the world's best search engine. And we try to be the world's best search engine. Sometimes we don't succeed. Sometimes our searches are not as good as they could be, but we work really hard on these 3 things: crawling, indexing, and ranking. And let me just dive right in and start talking about how crawling works. It's just like browsing the web whenever you have a web browser open. You click on a link, you get to a new page. You click on another link, on that page, you get to a new page. You follow those links, and before you know it, the entire day is over, and you haven't got any actual work done. You've only surfed all day long. So what Google does is we follow those links in PageRank order. Now, what is PageRank exactly? A lot of people say, you know, I want to know the secret formula to Google. Well, luckily, we published the secret formula to Google. It's a little hard to read, so, you know, it's just a vector over web pages corresponding to the sources of rank. You take the summation of that vector over R prime, divided by the denominator, add this, you know, sort of decay factor over the reset vector. It's simplicity, right? How could it be any simpler? Okay, that's actually, I did have math. I took math in college, but I'm not sure I could interpret this anymore. So let me try to give the intuition. And most people know this, but I just want to mention it for people that haven't heard this before. A lot of people think the only thing that matters is how many links you have to your website, which leads to people exchanging links over and over and over again that maybe don't add that much value. What really matters is not just the number of links, but how important those links are. So if I have a website and I have links from my college friends or my high school buddies, those links might not carry a lot of weight. If I can go down to the AFP a few blocks away and get a link from the AFP or a reputable newspaper or a well-known site, that carries a lot more page rank. So this looks a little complex, but let me see if I can walk you through it. The formulas don't always make sense to me, but the pictures make a lot more sense to me. It looks a little strange, but let's take an example. Don't worry about the fact that PageRank in the toolbar, Google toolbar, goes from 1 to 10. Just think about PageRank as being 100 or 9 or whatever. If this page has a PageRank of 9 and it has 3 outgoing links, all you do is you take the PageRank and you divide by the number of links. So each one of these outgoing links would have a PageRank of 3 flowing out through the links. Now that's not a perfect model of PageRank, but that's pretty close. The short answer is that a little bit of PageRank disappears. So this PageRank of 9 might go down to a PageRank of 8. Something like 10 or 15% of the PageRank disappears. But that is the intuition behind PageRank. This page, suppose it has 100, whatever units you want to measure it in, and it has 2 outgoing links. All you do is you take the 100 and you divide by 2. And that's the amount of PageRank that flows through the outgoing links. You now know enough about PageRank where you don't have to listen to 50 different people talking about PageRank. What's the value of PageRank? How much can I do about PageRank? That's all the intuition you need to know about how PageRank works. That's one step of the process. That's how it iterates one time. All the algorithm does is it starts with some trusted sites and it flows PageRank around the web until things are done, until the singular value decomposition has converged, which really just means until the PageRank has stopped sloshing around and it stabilizes. So does that make sense? Pretty intuitive? Everybody's like, PageRank, it's a secret formula. Google won't talk about how it works. We published the PageRank paper. We want people to know that's how it works. Sometimes people get a little too caught up. This is a long slide, but this is someone who was posting on a forum, Webmaster World, who literally was asking, I don't understand. I have more links with higher PageRank than my competitor. I should rank higher. So sometimes people suffer from backlink obsession or BO. No one should suffer from BO. It's a bad thing. A lot of times people focus only on PageRank. And PageRank is not the only thing that matters. It's one of more than 200 different signals that Google uses. So a lot of people, because they can see PageRank in the Google toolbar, they get obsessed. They get fixated on it. They're like, how do I get more links? How do I get more PageRank? It's not fair. My competitor looks like they have less links. How do I have lower PageRank? And the answer is this. It's not just the number of links. It's also our opinion about how much those links matter. I might trust a link differently than you might trust a link. You might think a link is very important, and you might disagree. Let me give you a very short example that demonstrates that. Suppose someone goes to Google, and they type in the search Barack Obama. How many people think that the #1 web page for Barack Obama should be whitehouse.gov? You're going to have to... Everybody's like, I really don't want to raise my hand. I didn't realize this was going to be like participation. I just wanted to listen a little bit. You're going to have to raise your hand on one of 2 choices. It's either going to be his personal webpage or whitehouse.gov. So barackobama.com or whitehouse.gov. So let me take the poll one more time. How many people think that it should be whitehouse.gov for Barack Obama? Okay, about 40%. How many people think it should be barackobama.com, #1? Also about 40%. Which means about 20% of people are like, I really don't want to answer. Please don't call on me. the mere fact that this room, which is filled with internet experts, cannot agree who should rank #1 for Barack Obama means there is no objectively perfect set of search results. It's a matter of opinion. Every search engine is going to have... Sorry. No. I want to know what's up there. It looks like a fun space. Every search engine... I want to keep it a little bit interesting. I apologize if I joke around a little too much. Every search engine is going to have a different philosophy. Every search engine might say, oh, I would rather rank Italian sites higher or French sites higher. I care more about geolocalization. Or I'd rather have the official website of a prime minister rank versus their personal website. So it's not just the number of links, it's our opinion of the importance of those links. It's a fairly reasonable point, but I just want to make sure that we get it across. Okay, I've talked about crawling. Questions about crawling so far? We've got to keep going on so we can get to all the different topics. Okay, let's talk a little bit about indexing. We have 2 documents on the web. I wanted to get a famous French quote. Criticism is easy, art is difficult. Very distinguished quote. And then, and that's document number 3. It has high page rank. It's very reputable, so it was one of the first documents we found. And then document number 3846, a little less reputable. Someone's talking about Britney Spears and her hair. She does weird things with her hair, right? People have compared the internet to a house where some people are sipping a wonderful red wine and talking about classical music, and the people in the room next door are setting the couches on fire and, playing loud rock music. Anything goes on the internet. All types of documents are there on the internet. We have to index all of it. I thought it would be more fun to use the example of the Britney Spears one. Is that okay? My French is bad enough. I'll stick with Britney Spears. In building an index, it's just like building an index for a book. When you have a book, you want to be able to look in the back of the book and say, okay, I want to show, a lot of times you're looking up, is my name in that book? Or, what's this topic? I don't want to read the whole book. I only want to look up SEO. So what are the pages in this book that have the word SEO? It's the exact same process with Google, except our index is the entire web, tens of billions of web pages. So whenever we crawl the web, we end up with what we call word ordered. That is, we have the documents, and we basically say, okay, here's document number 1. Britney Spears has great hair. I think she looks really cute. We need to put them in the order of words. So we need to shuffle them around, and we need to say, for the word Britney, or the word Spears, what are all the documents that have the word Britney? So Britney occurs on the web a lot. Document number 2, number 55, number 900, 3846. All of these documents have the word Britney. So we build this index. It's called a posting list, if you're interested. And we build it for every word on the web. And by the way, there are tens of millions of words on the web. People do gibberish. People have the word Google with 2 O's, 3 O's, 4 O's, 5 O's, Google, all this sort of stuff. And we index all those words. You can search for Google with like 28 O's, and someone has typed it on the web. And we need to be able to index it and return that document. So we also have the word Spears. It occurs in documents 2, 3846, 5998, and 80,000. So the whole process of computing an index is taking all the words across the entire web and rearranging it so that for each word, we know every single document that it occurs in. Does that make sense? Okay. So now let's get to ranking. And I just have to say, I threw this slide in because I wanted to see whether Google presently could handle animated GIFs. And it can. This is traffic to Google as of 2003. Can you see the sun in this picture? As the sun moves across the globe, traffic changes. People in America wake up, people in Asia go to sleep. And so at any given time, you can see the cities of the world if you plot frequency. It's like a satellite picture. And this is from 2003, so each of these little data points is a search. We handle over 1 billion searches a day. My dad is a physicist, and he told me that the speed of light means a particle of light can go around the Earth 7 times in 1 second, which sounds really, really fast. It's like 187,000 miles per something hour. It's really fast. You can't beat light. You can't go faster than light. Come on. She's like, he's running right for me. Look out. So one trick that we do whenever someone comes to Google is we try to find the closest data center. So if you come from California, we'll send you to the West Coast data center. If you come from Boston, we'll send you to the East Coast data center. If you come from Paris, we might send you to a data center in Dublin. If you come from Japan, we'll send you to an Asian data center. And that saves 200 milliseconds, 2 blinks of an eye. But that extra time helps us keep the search below half a second. So we do that. Mainly, I just like the picture, so I wanted to show you that. Whenever we're ranking, we have to return the results as quickly as possible. So one of the ways that we do it is by balancing data centers. I won't spend too long on this, but can I stand here? Is this okay? It won't collapse? Oh, yeah. Awesome. I'm exploring the space. I'm having a great time. Okay. You have come to Google. You have typed in the words Britney Spears. Now we have to give you the best 10 documents across the entire web for the search Britney Spears. So given the word Britney, you remember we have these documents. Given the word Spears, you remember we have these documents. Now we have to do what's called document selection. We have to find what are the documents that have the words that you typed. So all we do is we take these two what are called posting lists and we intersect them. We say Britney occurs in documents 2. Spears occurs in document 2. Aha, we have a match. Document 2 contains the phrase Britney Spears. Document 55 has Britney, but it doesn't have Spears, so that's no good to us. It's talking about a different Britney. It's not Britney Spears. Throw it away. Same thing with document 900. It has Britney, no Spears. Another match. Document 3846 has both Britney and Spears. Does this make sense so far? Too basic? Should I go faster? Okay, so we throw this out. We throw this out. No, we get this one. Okay, we have 3 documents. Now we know the 3 documents that contain Britney Spears. This is a little bit more of an interesting slide. I said that we have over 200 factors that influence Google's ranking. Here are about 6 of them. In order to do well on Google, you need to have reputation and you need to be relevant. A good way to think about reputation is PageRank. So we've talked about PageRank. Should make sense. It's intuitive. The second thing you need to know is how relevant a document is. How well does it match your query? So that's where we get the other 199 signals. Some of the things that count include how many times does a query occur on the page. If I say Britney Spears, 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 am I talking about Britney Spears? Yeah, absolutely. I might not be a great document. I might not have been returned. You might not want to see that document because it would be annoying, but I'm definitely topical. I'm related to Britney Spears. How about if I have the word Britney up here and Spears down at the bottom of the page? That's not as good as Britney right next to Spears. So we give a little bit of a boost if the words are in close proximity. In fact, there's even a factor called anti-proximity. If you have Spears Britney, that's a bad match compared to Britney Spears. So it doesn't count nearly as much as Britney Spears. Are the words in the page title? Are the words in the URL? These are things that people understand. A lot of SEOs know that, but not everybody knows that. Having the words on the page in different places can make a big difference. And the last thing that we do, anybody mentioned on this, on this slide? So we've taken the documents, we've sent you to the closest data center, we've found the all the documents that match, we've ranked them by over 200 factors. Now we do a little bit of extra work. We say, let's return a snippet that's relevant to what they typed in. So I'll tell you, last night I did this search, and the search was SEO camp Matt Cutts. And we take these web results, we happen to crawl these Twitter results via our web crawl, and we look for the words SEO camp and Matt Cutts, and we try to highlight that in the snippet. If we just show you the first 50 words on a page, that's usually kind of useless. You want to see whether a page is really what you're talking about. So we try to highlight in the snippet whether it's about the particular things that you typed in. So, in under half a second, we get your query, send it to the right data center, find the documents that match, compute the best 10 documents, all this sort of stuff. One last point. There's an ad system in Google. We show ads as well. You might not know this, but if the ads aren't ready by the time we've computed the search results, we don't show ads. We never make the user wait to see ads. So the ad system has to be very fast, because we do like to show ads. But I think that's the right priority. It's putting the user first. It's saying, look, we're not going to slow the user down. We're not going to make them wait just to see our little text ads on the right-hand side of the page. And that's the right philosophy. Okay, that's the first half of the talk. Chunk, done. Some of it review. I apologize if that was a little remedial for some people. Now let's talk about how to do better in Google. Do we have questions yet at this point? Dramatic pause. Okay. We already talked a little bit about the 200 signals that Google uses, but the main way to think about it is that there's two basic categories of how we score pages. How reputable a page is and how relevant it is. That's it. If you have a really relevant page, but it has no reputation, it might be spam, which is what we work on. So I was saying Britney Spears, Britney Spears, Britney Spears, Britney Spears, Britney Spears. That's really topical. That's really relevant. It's also keyword stuffing. And if it doesn't have much page rank, it might not be a good result to show. But you also have to have reputation. You have to have links. So we try to get a trade-off that says, what's the best page that we can find about what you typed in that is also really reputable? So it's the trade-off between them. Honestly, the biggest problem that most people have with SEO is not having a site that's crawlable. That's probably 40% of the problems. And it's a lot of fun to think about what are the most exotic things you can do, how can I change my site, how can I get more links, all these sorts of things. The first question to ask is how crawlable your site is. Because you would be amazed how many people mess that up. So look at your page in a web browser and ask yourself, can I click on links and get to every page on my site? And if you can't, you have a problem. So that's SEO 101. If you can't get that right, your website's going to have a problem. The next big category of problems that I see is what's called keyword selection. I was doing a site review session, and someone submitted this site, and they said, we would like to rank for AIDS-related things, HIV, the disease. Is this a friendly site for beginners? What do you think? Does it welcome you? Do you feel, thanks for coming in, show me the best pages? Look at this. Recommendations for use of antiretroviral drugs in pregnant HIV-1 infected women for maternal health and interventions to reduce perinatal, I don't even know what perinatal means, HIV transmission in the United States. Is anyone going to type that into Google? Maybe whoever wrote that article. No one else is going to type that into Google. If you look elsewhere on the site, they have stuff like this. How do you use a condom? Some people know that. A lot of people don't know that. If you're a teenager, that's a helpful resource for you. Is there a cure? Is there a vaccine? This is what people are going to type into Google. So what did this site do wrong? They put this buried deep down in an FAQ section. They should have put that weird research articles down buried on the site. Put this on the front page. Think about what people are actually going to type when they try to get to your search engine. Which brings me to the last sort of participation part. I want you guys to think about keywords and what people type into your site. And so what I want you to do, can people see what I'm holding up okay? You're familiar with this device? You've seen it in your everyday life? This is going to be tricky because you're going to be thinking about what the keywords are in French, but turn to the person to your left. If you're all the way on the left, you can turn to the person on your right. And just take a couple minutes and say, what would you call this? If you were typing into Google and you wanted to buy one of these, what would you call this? Okay, so take a couple minutes. I actually want you to discuss with your neighbor, what are you going to type into Google to find one of these? Okay, my French is horrible, so you might have to say in English. Just raise your hand. What would you call this? Who wants to suggest? What? USB key. Very popular. USB drive. Thumb drive. USB device. Absolutely. This is probably the most common USB device. What else is there really on USB? Other? Memory stick. Stick, not drive, right? Okay, others? Anyone use something different than that? Storage? Yeah. It's generic storage. I want USB storage or storage by itself. Others? Flash memory, flash drive, yes, absolutely. Any others that we haven't mentioned? Okay. RAM, flash RAM. The point of this exercise is this. People will type different things into the search engines. I got almost all of them. I don't think I got flash stick. Key is tricky. That one didn't occur to me for a while. When you are making your website, think about what people will really type in, because they will surprise you, right? For the AIDS site, they'll type in, I had unprotected sex with my boyfriend, and I'm worried that I might be pregnant or that I might have AIDS. What are the odds that I have AIDS? People type that sort of thing into the Google search engine box. They use all kinds of words, right? So if you do a construction site, don't just use specific phrases that are really technical, you know, that make sense to you, but an average person wouldn't do it. If you take your website and you show it to 10 different people, you'll get 10 different answers about the keywords they would type to find it. So there's all kinds of keyword tools. Google has a keyword tool. You can type in something like iTrip. You can get all these different phrases. It's worth spending a little bit of time thinking about the keywords and how people can come up with different phrases for stuff. How many people have a blog? Yeah. How many people use WordPress? Yeah. What else do you guys use? I'm curious. Okay. Yeah. A few people, Tumblr, Posterous, Blogger. Any blogger? Please? Please? One blogger? No? Oh, you have wounded my heart. Okay. I can't complain. I don't use Blogger. I use WordPress. Blogger is a great system. It's wonderful for, my mom uses Blogger. It's wonderful for brand new people. If you don't want to pay money and you don't want to get a domain name, Blogger is fantastic. So if you use WordPress, how should you structure your URLs? I like to just use the name of the post. Sometimes it's helpful to have the date, but you definitely shouldn't just say post equals 1, 2, 3. Because why use that when you can use 3 or 4 keywords that would help? And then here's an advanced tip for WordPress users. You'll notice that the changing the default printer on Linux and Firefox, this is a long tail query. I dominate the space for changing the default printer on Linux and Firefox. I completely control that query. I'm so proud. But what if someone types in change default printer? Well, you can also change your URL in WordPress. So you can use slightly different tenses, like change versus changing. I can take out the, so you can change the URL versus the title. Why use the same title and the same URL if you can get just a few different keywords? Not to be spammy, not to keyword stuff 8 different words in the title, but just, you know, changing versus change. It's useful for users. Almost all the time I go to talk to a SEO and someone asks, what about dashes versus underscores? So I just want to take 1 minute. Historically, Google will index a word like A_B as one word. We do that because it was an artifact of programming. It was the simple case that people would use like printf_debug or something like that. So we don't treat an underscore as a separator. We treat dashes as a separator. We should try to clean that up. We have people, you know, trying to work on fixing that. But if you can use dashes, that's better than using underscores in the URL. If you already have a website and it's working for you, if you're happy with its performance, don't bother to go back and change it. Don't change the underscores to dashes. There's nothing at all you need to worry about if you're happy. But if you're making a brand new website, why not go ahead and use dashes instead of underscores? So just a small point to think about. And then finally, we're talking about being relevant. I have to include an example of trying to be too relevant. Please don't overdo it. I'm the head of the web spam team, and I see this was a site that was submitted to a site review, and the person genuinely thought they had a great site. The English on this is incredibly stilted. They're trying to get the word furniture, antique wood furniture, home furniture, hotel furniture, office furniture, indoor furniture, outdoor furniture, and then they just do it again, office, home, hotel. They're just getting the word furniture in as much as they can. And that comes across as spammy. If a user lands on this page and they think it sounds artificial, they're not going to buy their wood furniture from that place. Okay.
Sorry.
Yes?
What actually triggers the spamming algorithm there? It's just furniture repeated many times?
Yes. Yes. Google writes algorithms that tries to say, we have many different algorithms that say, how artificial is this text? Does it look like gibberish? Did someone use a hidden random Markov model to sort of generate text automatically? Oh, wait a second. I see a few, no, I don't do that. I'm going to look a little more over this side of the audience. Are people doing article spinning? Are people doing content rewriting? Okay, yeah, all right. No guilty looks. So we look for gibberish, so words that don't normally go together. We have a very distinguished language model that says, okay, normally Britney and Spears goes together, but Spears Britney doesn't make as much sense to see. So if you see too much of that, that can be artificial. We also have a classifier that tries to detect keyword stuffing. Britney Spears, Britney Spears, Britney Spears, Britney Spears. In fact, our scoring system is written such that the first time you see Britney, it counts pretty well. The second time you see Britney, it counts not quite as much. Third, fourth time, it plateaus. It has diminishing returns because there's no real value to saying Britney 5, 10, 20 times. So our scoring is written such that it really doesn't help you to keyword stuff anyway. But because users don't like to see it, we write classifiers to detect keyword stuffing and not rank it as highly. Excellent question. Thank you. More questions? Happy to answer. Yes? I'll repeat the question. Yeah. Fantastic. The question is, what if the words are at the top of the page versus the bottom of the page? And that doesn't really make a difference. Yeah. It's a common perception that you really want to put the words high up. Some people will do a table trick to try to get the words up above before the rest of the content starts. You don't need to worry about that. Google does give a little bit more weight to, for example, the H1 tag. So if something's in an H1 or a title, that does carry a little more weight. But a word toward the top of the page versus the bottom of the page, it's totally fine. And in fact, if you read the original PageRank paper, links towards the top of the page don't count any more than a link toward the bottom of the page. You can imagine it might be smarter to be a little more sophisticated about that. But a lot of the times, even though most people should write in this very succinct style where the important stuff is at the top, sometimes the best stuff is at the bottom. So there's really not any difference in the ranking. Great question. Follow-up question. Okay, people are asking questions. Yes, I'm happy. All right. People are like, okay, give us the good stuff, Right on. Get off script. So fantastic question. The question was, didn't Google have a patent that sort of looked at the zones of a page and could distinguish between the different zones and say some words count more and some words count less? That's true. Two answers. Number one, we patent a lot of things. That doesn't mean that we use it. So first off, we've patented it, in order to protect yourself against being sued, it helps to have patents in the United States patent system. So sometimes you file for patents just so that you can be protected in case other people want to come towards you. It's a weird system, but that's how the United States patent system works. So we don't use every idea that we've patented or every implementation that we've patented. But we do try to detect certain zones of content. For example, boilerplate. If something is always on the same part of the page, maybe it's left-hand navigation, maybe it's footer, something like that, we can detect that it's boilerplate, and we might not count that as much. Now, go back to your first question. It doesn't matter whether the boilerplate's at the top of the page or the bottom of the page. So the first word in the paragraph versus the last word in the paragraph doesn't make any difference. But if we think something is really just repeated over and over and not useful, like privacy policy, contact us, the stuff at the bottom of the page, we might consider that boilerplate or repetitious text and just not count it as much. Thanks for clarifying that. Haha, now we're into it, yes?
Sorry, I would just like to extend that last question.
Does it mean that something that is really repeated on every page basically does not really count?
It depends on how you define does not really count, but it counts less, or it can count less. We might not detect it correctly, we might not consider it boilerplate because we might still think it's useful, but if it's copyright 2010, we'll index it, but we'll index it as text that doesn't carry very much weight. So if someone specifically asks for the word copyright, we might use it to return that page, but it would carry much less weight than stuff within the content of an article.
Okay, so I'll insist a little bit more because you like this. A lot of sites nowadays have, at the bottom of their page, they don't put copyright. Well, they do, but so you don't give that any importance. But they will repeat all the main categories of their site and even sometimes the subcategories. And you'll find that on, for instance, all the page products. So I repeat my question. Is that useless or useful?
Great question, and I kind of skipped over that a little bit earlier. I think it actually can be useful to specify categories in your WordPress blog that are good keywords. So for example, if you go to my blog, let's go to my blog. And we'll hope that I'm still on Wi-Fi. Here's how I handle categories. I only have a small number of categories, 500 articles about Google or SEO. And you'll notice I very cleverly picked it Google/SEO. That means I can label the category as Google SEO, and every article will at least have the word Google or the word SEO on it at least once. Right? I'm thinking about the keywords people are going to type. I have Chrome, I have Android, I have Linux, Ubuntu, I have the iPhone. These are all useful keywords. I only put one category per post, maybe two. So for example, on SSL search, it's in this one category. I've gotten it on the page once. It counts a little bit. It doesn't count that much, but it might help a little bit. If someone has a ton of categories down at the bottom here, it's repeated, it's boilerplate, it's a tag cloud with 50 words, we're less likely to count it or to give it less weight. There was another. The questions are just as much fun for me. So someone had another question? Fantastic question. PageRank itself is not localized for different properties. Let's just, presentation, done. Let's start doing live stuff. No, I don't need to translate. I can speak enough French. But, so PageRank will be the same. But you'll notice if I do the query bank in France, it's Banque France, right? Maybe one Wikipedia page, but most of this stuff is relevant to France. Now let's go to google.com, and I do the query bank, and I get Bank of America. So it is localized. And in fact, if I go to google.com.au, so we're moving around the country, I get Wikipedia. By the way, Google returns Wikipedia less often than Microsoft. So people who think, you know, Google always returns Wikipedia, it's actually less than a lot of other search engines. So we get these sort of sites. We get news about banks. We also get the National Australia Bank. So the PageRank is the same. But we know that these sites are relevant to Australia. And in fact, here's one that I want to highlight. ANZ.com, it's a .com, but we know that it's relevant to Australia. So we'll return that even though it's not com.au. So there's different factors that we use. We look at the TLD, the CC TLD, country code, .fr, .de, you know, whatever. We also look at if someone has specified in Google's Webmaster Tools, they can say, I'm specifically related to Australia. You can do that if you have a generic top-level domain. That's a .com, .net, .org, stuff like that. We also look at the IP address. So maybe the IP address of this, was it based in Australia? We also have other signals that we try to use to guess where a domain is especially relevant, but those are the big three. Those are the vast majority of it. So the PageRank of ANZ is the same, but we might know from your IP address you're searching from France, so try to show stuff related to France. And in fact, we geolocalize not just by country. If I'm searching in Nice or Lyon or Paris, I might get different results if I search for theater or bank or something like that. So it's geolocalized down to a metro level, not just at a country level.
Talking about the geolocalization again, you say that so different criteria count, the .com or .fr, .uk or whatever, and the IP address of the servers. And do both of those count? Is it better to have both, or is one enough?
I like to say treat search engines like small children, right? The keep it simple approach. Because oftentimes you'll be doing a search and you look at the search results and you say, that's not right. That's kind of fun to do. So if you can get the TLD and the IP address, that's great. That leaves less room for someone to mess up. But if your TLD is .fr, that's a pretty clear signal that you're related to France. Sorry, I've completely messed up your audio, I apologize. It's like bum, 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 completely percussive stuff. So it is the case that we can usually interpret the difference, but think about a small startup. Think about a one-person search engine, right? They're just starting out, they're trying to write their own search engine. They're probably not going to be as sophisticated. They might not have a list of all the different IP addresses in countries. So why not get as many signals as possible to try to help out? Okay. More questions? I can... Cool. Okay. I want to at least mention a little bit about how to get links. People are enjoying that. I'll just put that up. Has anyone read the blog of the fake Steve Jobs? Fake Steve Jobs? It's not Steve Jobs' blog. It's a reporter. His name is Dan Lyons. He writes for Newsweek now. And he writes as if he's Steve Jobs. He's used this to get a fantastic job at Newsweek. He was practically unemployed before he started, you know? And all he does is he pretends to be Steve Jobs, and he's really sarcastic. He's really funny. I read him all the time. In fact, he just switched to using an Android phone instead of an iPhone. I was so happy. I was like, yes, go Android. That's fantastic. There's no reason at all to listen to a guy named Dan Lyons, but people really want to hear from Steve Jobs. So he was going to be funny. He's like, I'm fake Steve Jobs. But just being somebody reputable or pretending to be someone reputable is not enough. Did you know Sergey Brin has a blog? He does. TOO.blogspot.com. Anybody want to guess how many blog posts Sergey has written? Maybe 3. It was 2 forever and ever and ever. So last time I took a screenshot, he had not updated his blog since September 2008. It's a little hard to rank your website if you don't add any content since 2008. It's 2010. At this point, you know, he should be a little embarrassed that he hasn't updated his blog more often. Has anyone played the game Katamari? Yeah, okay, thank you. It's a fantastic game. You play as the Prince of the Cosmos. You start out as this little tiny guy, and you have what's called a Katamari. It's very small. So at first, you can only roll up very small things. Thimbles, needles, pieces of candy. But as you roll up the Katamari, you get bigger. And when you're bigger, you can roll up larger things. You can roll up people, you can roll up elephants and giraffes, until finally, you're rolling up clouds, you can roll up Zeus, you can roll up land, until you've consumed the entire planet. You have hundreds of meters of Katamari. It's a ton of fun. It's like my most favorite game. So these people have dressed up as, you know, characters in Katamari. The Katamari philosophy is this. You are probably not going to be able to rank for ringtones or lottery or payday, debt consolidation, mortgage loans, real estate the very first day you start doing SEO. It's a little hard to do that. So start with something specific. Try to rank for real estate in one city, or try to rank for a specific type of mobile phone. And then as you get to be more reputable, you can build up and get more reputation and get more people to know about you. So the Katamari philosophy is just start small and always be reaching, always be growing, always be trying to tackle bigger things. This is my favorite slide in the talk. And I'll try to make sure that I publish this publicly. How to provide a useful service. A blogger A blogger is a law blogger, someone who blogs about the law. I am not a lawyer. I never want to be a lawyer. I'd be scared to be a lawyer. Law stuff is, I'm allergic to it. But I really appreciate that this guy writes about the law. It's helpful. It makes it accessible to me. So I've linked to him before. A couple people are outside. Come on in, enjoy the talk. You can do original analysis. Danny Sullivan, who's a very famous search blogger, once signed up for Google, Microsoft, and Yahoo email. And he said, let's track who is better at doing email spam. So for 1 month, he wrote down every bit of email spam that he got. And at the end of the month, luckily Google was the best, but he had a really unique piece of original research. He published that, and he got a ton of links. Does anybody here get spam email, right? How many people get spam email? Everyone in this room gets spam email. Anyone in here could have done that analysis to say who does the best at spam. Great information or tutorials. There's a lot of people in here who provide free services, who write about a lot of different information to help people out, and they get links in return. Find a creative niche. If you can draw, you can make a web comic, those sorts of things people link to. Write some code and release it as open source. By the way, before the talk, I was talking to this fine young man about EasyCast and UbiCast. Is it Ubisoft or UbiCast, right? It's really cool. It's an Ubuntu-based system. It's based on Intrepid IBEX. It's point and click. It's using OpenGL libraries and toolkits so that literally all you have to do is click around and you can stream live on the web. It's like really impressive. I run Ubuntu, so I'm like a geek. I like to talk about this stuff, right? Open source is near and dear to my heart. So I got his business card. I'm like, hey, send me a tweet so that I can tell people about your company later. I've never seen something that works so smoothly. Like, this is working really, really well. Most video conferencing systems, most presentation systems, you're doing the 1024 by 768. You're trying to get the video to project correctly. This was just turnkey. It worked really smoothly. So if you make something excellent, especially if it has an open source component or something that has got a hook, people will link to that. I'll be linking to that later. That's the sort of thing that can attract links. Live blogging. Anybody in here going to write about this later on the blog? Maybe just a little bit of coverage? That'll probably get some links. Has anyone been tweeting, you know, Matt Cutts is boring. Why is Matt Cutts going over this stuff? Oh, I just want to take questions. It's okay. That's all right. I want to make sure I cover some of this stuff, but we'll have plenty of time for questions. It attracts links. And of course, everybody knows this, but people love lists. 11 reasons why Paris is the best city in the world. The 11 best places to go with your girlfriend in Paris. Those are the sorts of things that people can't help but link to. You have to be a little careful when you pick a fight. Like, you can say, I was looking forward to Matt Cutts' talk, and it was the worst thing ever. I was really disappointed. You can say that. And then I might say, I thought it was great. I thought it was fantastic. And we get into this hairball of a fight, and people are like, oh, no, I thought it was good. No, I thought it was too basic. Oh, I thought it was good. But you have to be careful. If you do that too often, you get to be known as this controversial guy who's only trying to make a big impression. And that can hurt your reputation. But if someone is wrong, you can correct them. It's worth picking a fight sometimes. Lots of people are already on Twitter, so I don't have to tell you about this. Even doing your own line of conferences, it can make a big difference. People like to link to that sort of stuff. Videos. I ended up making videos because it took too long to write a blog post. And if I was just sitting down, I could talk for a minute or two and answer a question. And so I could answer 30 or 40 questions in one day. So 2 weeks ago, I sat down and we recorded answers for 6 straight hours. We've got about 60 videos queued up. At this point, we've done about 200 Webmaster videos, and they've gotten 2 million views. People like to watch videos. They like to waste their time. They like to, you know, just be distracted from work. That's the sort of thing that can absolutely attract links. Questions so far? Cool. You got one. Oh. Is it on? Yeah.
Great advice.
Yeah.
Okay. Some SEOs are a little worried about in UK, for example, they can, on the search engine results, they see some results of the United States websites.
Awesome.
yes, how can you help them? And second questions, I have a lot of bloggers.
Let me answer that one first. That
Yeah,
one's
okay,
so good,
great.
it's going to take me a minute. So if we just showed you search for bank, right, and you could get the results for your country. But if you're in the UK and you search for bank and you get ANZ.com, results from Australia, you're going to be unhappy. And in fact, people have asked about that because for a while we were starting to show a few results from other countries. So there's an engineer at Google. His name is Alex. He leads a team that is specifically looking at this. And he asked me to tell people whenever I went to Europe that they have just launched some improvements that will help with that. So if you see examples where we're still doing that, please let me know. I'll write them down in my little book. And then I'll go back to Alex and I'll be like, Alex, you search for immobilien or whatever, and we still got some UK results or something like that. Because we want to do better on that. So we actually have taken action even in the last few weeks to try to improve that. So take a fresh look. If you still see problems, then let me know and I'll go back and I'll punch him in the head and yell at him a little bit. Okay.
Don't punch him, please. Okay, second question. And bloggers are very concerned with the content scrapers, especially the one that have high authority. Not to mention Mahalo in the United States, but you have the same in France. So how can you solve this problem? Thanks.
It's a great question. Yeah, we should just switch to all Q&A at this point. We're having fun. We tried to detect who first wrote content. Sometimes we can have problems with that because if you have a full RSS feed, maybe you produce a blog post, someone else subscribes to the RSS feed and they can immediately publish it. And so by the time we crawl it, we see these two articles appear almost at the same time. So sometimes we have issues finding who first wrote an article. But most of the time we can. And when we do, we try to show the original article. So what happens when we get it wrong? There's a couple things you can do. If this person is a true scraper and they're scraping from all over the web, I would do a spam report. You can either show up in the Google Webmaster Forum and say, hey, this guy's a scraper, he's scraping all over the place. Or we have a spam report, it's localized en français, so you can submit it and say, this is a really spammy guy. The other thing you can do is there's something called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. You can file a DMCA request, and you can say, this guy's really bad. If you know of a specific site that you really don't like, tell me about it afterwards. I'll go back, and I'll say, hey, we had a complaint. What's your name? Well, we had a complaint specifically from this guy. Maybe we're not doing a good enough job at detecting scraped content in this particular market, or maybe we could do something better. So that's the rough answer. Now I'll give you the bonus answer, which you asked about Mahalo. I'm not familiar with the Mahalo en français that you mentioned, so I don't know exactly which site you're talking about. But I can talk about Mahalo in the United States, which is Mahalo is a site that tries to produce resources by hand. They started out just producing links, but they also add some text content. The problem is people noticed that Mahalo sometimes showed basically search results. And there was no added value there. There was no actual handwritten content. So this was a big controversy a few months ago. And people didn't really realize it, but Google was working behind the scenes to take care of that. So if you had perfect visibility into Mahalo's traffic, you actually would have seen it going down quite a bit. And Mahalo took good action based on that. Earlier on, they'd added no index to the search result pages. After Google took action on our own to make sure that we didn't show these sort of duplicate pages that only had search results, that had no added value, they took even more initiative on their own, and I think they're back where they're starting to grow traffic. So the philosophy in Google is that we want websites that show up in Google to add value, to have original content. And don't be discouraged thinking, oh, Mahalo is doing well and they're a big site, they get a pass. No, we want to apply our guidelines to all sites, whether they're big or small. And some people thought, Google didn't take action on Mahalo. I'm happy to tell you now we did take action on Mahalo. And at any given point, someone will say, it's not fair. My site's not ranking as highly as it should. This other site, he's a really big site. He's ranking much higher. What you don't know is this other site, this big site, is also trying to write Google and saying, we're not ranking as highly as we should. We're a well-known site. We should be ranking much higher. Why aren't we getting higher rankings? So people aren't always privy to those sort of conversations that are going on where people are talking to Google and claiming they're not ranking as high as they should be given their real world impact, all that sort of stuff. So I'm happy to have the chance to clarify that. We did take action on that. We'll continue to try to take action on that. So thank you.
following up the question, if you're a press group and you do content syndication with big portals like Yahoo, for example, you won't be on the SERP because you will be in duplicate content with Yahoo, whose trust rank is really better than any other one. So what would you do in this context?
That's a fair question. Essentially, you have a trade-off. The trade-off is, do you want to have original content on your site, or do you want to strike a deal and make money by syndicating to Yahoo?
No money with Yahoo.
Okay. Whether you want to get some traffic from Yahoo or perhaps a link from Yahoo, those are the sorts of trade-offs that you have. What you can do is you might want to put your article live on your website for several weeks so that Google can see it before you put it on Yahoo if possible. The other thing you can do is try to make sure that you can put a link within the article to your website and say the source of this article is over here. That also can be a signal to help break the tie, because if we see two identical articles and they both point to this destination, we're more likely to realize this is the real location of the article.
Even if it's no follow?
Yeah, well, no follow is typically dropped out of our link graph, but if a user looking at it, someone trying to disambiguate what's going on, they can realize this is the home location. So the no-follow link will not help within the algorithms to say, but whenever we're trying to disambiguate and figure out which one is the true source of the content, we'll be able to tell just from looking at the page, even though it has a no-follow link, someone who's looking at it manually, for example. The other thing you can do is you can put a rel equal canonical in your header, and sometimes when it gets syndicated, that will flow through, and that will flow over to the other site. So the question when deciding whether to partner with large sites is always that trade-off. Is it worth it in terms of traffic, if you can get links, if you can get money? If it's not worth it, you might want to hold off syndicating until you have a little more reputation on your own site. It is a fair question.
Back to localization, is the localization of inbound links a signal for Google to determine the localization of a given website?
That's a fantastic question. You have stumped me. I'm not 100% sure. It used to not be a signal. I could imagine that it would be useful. So I would, you know, if there's a bunch of links from a Chinese.cn website, that might not be as good of a signal indicator as a bunch of links from a French website. So I'm not positive whether we use that as a signal. Thanks for the question, and I don't know the answer. At least the last time that I had checked, we didn't use it. But I wouldn't be surprised if we started to use it or had started to use it. Because in general, the more the links are coming from a website that's relevant to your country, the more useful that should be. So we have Webmaster Tools, a way to get free links. How many people use google.com/webmasters? Okay. You guys don't need to hear this. You can set your domain name, www, non-www. You can find out which articles are the most popular. You can use FeedBurner to find out which people are reading your blog and how often. Just a quick point. If you're thinking about rewriting articles or synonyms and things where you can make easy money, this is an email spam I got from Google. It said, be a lazy Google millionaire. All you have to do is fill out forms. Sometimes if things sound too good to be true, they are too good to be true. So please be a little skeptical. The way that this works, and it's a common scam, so I want to educate people if they haven't heard about it. They say, get a free kit, and this asterisk says shipping and handling not included. You pay $4 shipping and handling, and you bill your credit card, and then they will charge you $80 a month until you cancel your credit card. You can't call and reach these people and make them stop charging you. And it's not just this site. There's a site called Google Money Tree. Remember how I said Google links can be useful, but say 11 things instead of 10 things? Look at this. Make $107,389. Very specific. Make exactly that much, in 6 months. Just filling out forms and doing searches on Google and Yahoo. If you could make $107,000 in 6 months just filling out forms and doing searches on Google and Yahoo, everyone in the world would be doing it. And the people in this room are savvy enough to know that this is another scam. You give your, and I love this, you only have 15 minutes to buy. They won't sell it to you after 15 minutes, right? Limited time offer. You have to give your credit card right now. And it's the same sort of thing. They'll charge you $4 shipping and handling and then $100 a month until you can cancel that card. I just want to mention web server security really matters. Telegraph.co.uk. Evidently the British, they're just not as good about web security as some other types of countries. They had this is a place where, I'm kidding, hacking affects every country. I'm trying to, make a little bit of a joke at the expense of the British, but they have a site where you can make your own blog. So people made their own spam blogs about buying pharmacies. And if this can affect telegraph.co.uk, it can affect your website. I was doing a site review last week. I had 4 Google speakers. It was me and 3 other Google people. And 2 of those people at Google had had their site hacked. So I guarantee you right now, there's probably 2 people in this audience who have their website hacked right now. Just playing the odds. Just playing the odds, probably 2 of you are hacked at this moment and you might not know it. So please keep your web servers up to date and patched. This was a net neutrality site, but if you went to the right page, you could buy Canadian pharmacies. And these people didn't even realize that they were selling drugs. That's not the kind of image that you want to have on your website. So one thing that I do, this is a very simple tip. My blog can only be updated from about 5 or 6 IP addresses. My home, work. If I go to a hotel, I check the IP address, I add that IP address, and when I'm done, I remove it. This has kept my site from getting hacked a lot. Because I run WordPress, and anybody that runs WordPress, unless you keep up to date, scrupulously up to date, you will get hacked. So this is just a very simple tip. There are tens of thousands of WordPress websites that are hacked right now. So if you run WordPress, and if you're not running the latest version, you might be one of the 2 people that are hacked. So adding this sort of thing where you can only update from a certain number of IP addresses can make a really big difference. That's the end of the formal talk. Let's go to questions. It's my cat Emmy.
Si vous avez des questions en français, n'hésitez pas, on peut traduire pour vous. Donc c'est pas, l'anglais ne doit pas vous faire peur.
Wanted to know about Google Jazz last interface and to know what are the main differences between the whole interface about the algorithm. Please.
So Jazz is interesting because sometimes people name updates and we don't name them internally. So Jazz I'm not 100% sure of, but the one that a lot of people talk about is called Mayday because it happened around May 1st. Mayday was an algorithmic change. The idea was to try to show better search results, especially for long tail queries. So it's a way of assessing how reputable we think a site is. It is algorithmic. There was no manual stuff involved in any way, shape, or form. All the stuff at Google goes through a rigorous evaluation. So we would typically send a set of search results out to Maxime, and we would say, okay, here's the new set of search results. Left side, right side. Which one do you think is better? And he doesn't know what the algorithm change is. He doesn't know what's going on. All he knows is, okay, I'm going to look at the left and the right, and I'm going to try to pick which set of search results is better. So whenever we do an evaluation, we send it out and try to make sure regular people think that it's an improvement. So it passed through that rigorous evaluation change. We don't intend to roll it back. No algorithms actually changed with the new layout. We did do some interesting stuff. Let me see. So what the question is about, the left-hand side here. It's kind of neat. This lets us add new functionality. So for example, if you do the query bank, you can say pages en français, you can say French as a country, because not everyone who speaks French is in France, right? So you can slice and dice in different ways. Before, you had to click to expand this as an option. So if you're an SEO, people might find your site in a lot of different ways now. They might find your site by searching by date. They might say within the last 3 days. You can sort of click here, and you can find 24 hours, 1 week, 1 month, last year. So you can slice and dice by time. But this was an interface change. The search results didn't change at all. I love this change because now you can sort of do all kinds of interesting things. You can say, show me sites that have images with bank. And it will rerun the query and it will say, okay, here are all the different ways of looking at the websites that have images. And you can say, oh, this looks pretty good. That was the image I wanted, so I'll click on this website. So all these different ways of doing things. You can even sort, you know, chronologically. And we have a timeline feature. So if you haven't checked this out, I highly encourage you to check it out. You can see people talking about banks before the United States really existed. And you can see how much people are talking about banks during the .com era. So there's a lot of good ways to slice and dice. There's a lot of fun things. But people have to click around to find some of this stuff. So the algorithms haven't changed. It's just we're trying to surface new functionality. Thanks. Good question.
Do you have any metrics? Do you have any metrics about the click-through rate for this new interface?
Yes, absolutely. So in fact, let me switch to a more familiar thing, and let me do a search for Obama. What we try to do is this is dynamic. So we try to guess what are the most relevant, useful refinements to show. So with Obama, it tends to be breaking news. There's always something interesting going on. So we show things within the last 4 days. We're guessing the right time period. We also say, here are related searches. Maybe you're interested in Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Al Gore. So we try to show related things like that. So you might search for Sarkozy, and it might give you different politicians. That is new changes, and we've computed a lot of metrics to figure out whether this is useful. Not only is it dynamic, not only does it change depending on what you type. I love this one, the Wonder Wheel. But we do have metrics that say all of this is an improvement and people like it. So I can say, you know, I'm more interested in Michelle Obama. And I can click through and it will show me related phrases. This is a good way to do keyword research, by the way. If you have a topic and you're thinking about writing about it, you might type in Obama and you might not think to type some of these words, but it can be a good source. More questions? Yeah.
Could you possibly tell us a little bit more about Mayday?
Okay. It's interesting because what I can tell you is it didn't come from our team. It didn't come from the web spam team. It came from the general search quality team. So my team is in charge of things that are keyword stuffing, hidden text, hidden links, spamming blogs, referrer spamming, all that sort of stuff. We're in charge of the stuff that is clearly web spam. The search quality team, I'm making trouble by roaming all over the place. The search quality team is in charge of everything else, the core ranking that says what are the sites that should rank, the page rank, these sorts of things. So this was not a change that was driven by the web spam team. This was not something where we're trying to penalize sites or rank them lower because we think that they're spamming. This was something that's trying to assess the content quality of sites. You know, how useful is a site? And so it comes from the search quality group. So if there's a limited amount that I can add to that because it didn't originate from my group. It's not as if we pushed it out. But I knew that people would ask about it, so I wanted to get at least a few details before I came because I knew people would ask. But yeah, we do believe that it improves the quality. We do believe everybody wants to rank #1, but if someone goes down, someone else goes up. You only hear complaints. You never hear the person say, I went from #3 to #2. I'm happy now. But it is sort of a zero-sum game. There's always someone who's going to be unhappy, and there's always someone who's going to be happy. So we try to ask, given the evaluations, do the side-by-sides look positive? Does it look good? And so it measures our idea of how to improve the search results. And again, it comes back to opinion. Remember I said earlier, there is no perfect set of search results. There's no set of search results that everyone in this room will agree on. So the sorts of things that we care about include high quality, good reputation, good quality content. We also care about things like diversity. You don't want to have 10 results all from the same website. So we try to make sure that things are pretty good in terms of diversity as well. So Mayday was a change of an algorithm to try to produce results that we think will be better for users. And we're pretty happy with it. We can always refine it. We listen to feedback, and if people give us examples that say, this used to rank here, and for this search, it got worse, I love to get those kinds of examples. I take it back to the team, and I'm like, here you go. Here's how you can tweak the next iteration. So we'll keep looking at it.
About semantic web issues, RDFA, things like that. The first steps seem to be the answers to simple questions like who is the President of the United States, or what is the birth date of, etc. How do you see that evolving? And especially this morning, I went to see my friend Google and asked him what the birth date of Matt Cutts, who is a new friend of mine. And he said, I don't know. So.
There's no good answer here. Google can only return, by the way, I am not 44 years old. This is not me. This is a fake profile. Ah. Yeah, I didn't grab my MySpace name, and so someone else grabbed it. And then he offered to give it to me, and he said, okay. And it was a Yahoo email address, and I had trouble logging in, and so now I haven't logged in enough, and Yahoo has killed that email address. I have no way to reclaim this MySpace profile. So this will probably be on the web for decades, right? And I can't get rid of it. And I'm not in my 40s. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm not there yet. It's a simple point. Google can't return information that doesn't exist. So especially in a market like Arabic, there's not that many pages of content. So some of the stuff that we do is trying to increase the amount of content. We sponsored contests to say who could write the best articles. We might be able to learn and synthesize facts over time. So we might be able to say, here was a timeline of the presidents of the United States. We know that this Barack Obama was president in 2010. So if you ask who was the president after Barack Obama, we might be able to answer that in a few years once it's happened. But it's a hard problem. Even computing synonyms is a hard problem. So car, voiture, automobile, knowing all of those is really difficult. One of the things you might be able to do is you might be able to say, someone did the search car, and then they did the search automobile, and then they did the search voiture. So you can say, oh, maybe these are kind of related. And so maybe we'll give a little bit of weight if you see the word voiture but not car. That's the sort of thing that Google can learn over time from our search logs, but the ability to do general language processing of the web is really difficult. We still try, so. Yeah. It's not perfect, right? Someone who's a real native speaker would be able to tell that that is not as good as it could be. But it's better than I can do. I had 2 years of French in high school, and I was like, how would I say, it's good to be here? This could sort of, jog your memory a little bit. And we're working on systems where you can take a picture with your Android phone. It will do OCR to take the text, translate it to English, and then it will synthesize that voice. And we're working on systems where you can talk into your phone and you can say, how do I get to Gare du Nord? I have to take a train to Brussels. And it will do the voice recognition, translate it, and then it will hopefully speak some pretty bad French. But that might be enough to be able to say, how do I get there? It's a hard problem. Some of the ways that we do it, we actually learn from, should I stop talking about this question? It's fun for me. One of the things we do is the European Union produces these texts in many different languages, and that's one of the ways that we help to learn the different languages. But we're clearly not perfect. We'll keep working on it. It takes a lot to try to figure out how to make that work. It's fun to work on. Engineers love to work on it.
Can you tell us about the next big evolutions of the algorithm, like secret things you can tell us? It would be great.
Are you taking questions from Twitter? Is that the secret? Okay, so the next evolutions of the algorithm. It's a good question. Just you and me and our 20 closest friends on Twitter. Just a little tip. Yeah, okay. I'm trying to. No, I'm trying to think of a particular word, colloquial French, that the driver on the way in told me, and a tip, a little advantage, ocus or something like that. Anyway, okay. I think I'll give you my big high order bit. I think the trends in web search are going to be local, social, and mobile. Anybody not have a phone on them right now? Anybody? Anyone willing to raise your hand and say, I don't carry a cell phone? This is how you're going to get to the internet. And by the way, the next version of Android, it really rocks. You can get a portable Wi-Fi hotspot. This is Froyo, the next version on the Google Nexus 1. So if you have like a 2G, 3G, whatever GSM sort of connection, you can create a free Wi-Fi hotspot that anybody else can get on, which is awesome. I was on a bus, and I just had the phone in my pocket, and I had Wi-Fi on my laptop. That excites me. People are going to have these connections. It's also going to be social. People will be able to like search. So if I do a search like Obama, or let me do iPhone, I'll switch to .com. You can sometimes see social results. And I think that a lot of people appreciate being able to search for iPhone and see, what did my friend say about it? Local will also matter. What's the best, cheeseburger place within a very short radius? If I can search and find out, oh, Penelope Cruz said that this is the best place to get a cheeseburger, that's pretty handy, Maybe I trust her, maybe I don't, but it's better than just the run-of-the-mill place that I would go to. So those are kind of the big trends. Now let me think for just a second about the secrets. Making great content, getting good links is always going to be good. Some of the things that we are looking at is hacking. So SEO faces a bit of a choice. There's a black hat hacker, or someone who liked to call himself a black hat, named Mikkel Demib Svensson in Denmark. And he would always say, I'll do anything. I don't care. I'll sell drugs to kids, I'll do whatever. I just want to rank, top 10. And part of it is bravado. He's saying, whatever it takes to rank, I will do it. And he's only just recently changed his mind. He said, now I won't hack. I won't do anything that's illegal. So you have this SEO who, he wears a bright orange jacket, like he likes to, show off a little bit. And finally, he's willing to say, there's some things even I won't do. So SEO faces this fork in the road. Are people going to be willing to hack and do illegal things to make sites rank? And if they don't, they're competing with hackers. And so instead of doing these fly-by-night sites that can't stand the test of time, they're going to have to think about, how do I make a site that can last? How do I make a site that's here for 2 years instead of 2 weeks? Because the hackers are going to be making sites that last for 2 weeks. So I think that's a really interesting trend. What I am worried about, and what our group is worried about, is hacked sites, and also fresh spam. Spam using hot trends, spam using really recent stuff. Because if there's very little content on the web, then it's hard to know how reputable is a particular page. Maybe someone's writing around a brand new event, or maybe they're keyword stuffing. So those are the areas that we are paying a lot of attention to. I would recommend not doing those areas, because we're going to be looking at it very closely. Good question.
Thank you.
Could you tell us a bit more about the way you detect spam and false sites related to recent events? For instance, during the volcano eruption, there were lots of sites that took advantage of it, and of the fact that the name of the volcano almost didn't exist in Google before.
Exactly. So let's drill down on this for a minute. No one knows how to spell that volcano. I don't even know how to pronounce that volcano. So no one ever wrote any content about this until it erupted. And suddenly everybody's searching for it. And there might be a few articles by reputable sources, but it's so brand new that there's hardly any content. So that creates a problem on how do you rank. So we've worked on 2 different things. One is a fresh spam classifier, and what it does is it tries to spot queries that we think might be especially susceptible to fresh spam. That is, someone putting up new content that is really pretty horrible. And if that's the case, then we kick in a completely different algorithm. We process things in a different way. We require more trust in a site before it can rank. And that only went live about 3 weeks ago, so we're sort of waiting to see how the hackers and the black hats respond to that. But so far, we're pretty happy. We haven't seen a lot of responses where people have taken fresh spam and really gone beyond. So there's still this, a lot of people complaining about it, but they haven't woken up that fresh spam has gotten better. So we're waiting to see how that holds out. The other thing is we're writing a hacked site classifier. So the idea is that if this net neutrality site gets hacked, and they're suddenly showing, they used to be all about internet and free speech and democracy, and now it's about Viagra, Cialis, phentermine. That's a huge change in the topic of the site. So we have a hack site classifier that looks at multiple different signals and says, you know what? Maybe you're not the most relevant site for Viagra, even though you're reputable for a phrase like net neutrality. So I think that those are two really good changes. They've already gone live, and we're sort of keeping an eye out, because what we tend to find is you can take care of 80% of the problem, and often that fixes it, but then people will do another round of iteration. So we're sort of waiting for the hackers and the crackers and the bad guys to sort of take their punch, and then we'll see how we need to respond.
I just have a question about JavaScript. You can do plenty of things with JavaScript, bad things, good things, or things you don't want Google to care about. So do you have some guidelines, and what are your plans?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is a pretty savvy audience, and in fact I apologize if too much of the material was remedial, because I know there are some people who are a little, would prefer introductory material, and some people just want as advanced as you can get. We do process quite a bit of JavaScript. So we are able to discover links within JavaScript. So the only thing to be careful about is, most people know that if you buy links, Google doesn't like it if those links pass PageRank. And so if you are doing paid links in JavaScript, you can use the nofollow attribute even in JavaScript, and then we'll drop that out. Now, some people will try to do really sneaky things. They'll use JavaScript to say, I almost included some code. They did a condition that said, if 5 was equal to 4 plus 1, then do this redirect. 5 is always equal to 4 plus 1. So they were doing a test. They were saying, does Google execute JavaScript enough to know that I'm doing a sneaky redirect? And the answer is yes. We do execute enough JavaScript to know that. In fact, I saw an article where a Russian hacker was saying, well, here are 6 ways that you can do JavaScript that Google can't detect. And we actually detected 5 of those. So we immediately started working on the last one. If you're not trying to do anything spammy, which you're not, I'm sure. You look like a very decent, upstanding guy. You look very friendly. I trust you. We should go for lunch later. The thing to know is, it's helpful if you can include the links in static HTML as well. Just because even though Google processes JavaScript, and I think Microsoft to some degree does, it's a little easier if the links are also there in HTML. But even if content is in Flash, even if it's relatively obfuscated in JavaScript, we can usually still discover those links. They don't even have to be plain text, because the spammers will say, the new string is HTTP string plus this, plus this, plus this. We can still execute the JavaScript enough to interpret that and find out what the final string will be.
The other usage I was thinking about is testing. So we have lots of people now who want to test pages using JavaScript, for instance.
Absolutely. And I think that that's completely fine. Somewhere in here, I say that we worked with Google Website Optimizer, which is a specific way of doing A/B testing, because we didn't want any product from Google to cloak. So the way that they do it is they don't cloak. They return the same JavaScript and the same page to both users and to search engines. And then JavaScript, without doing anything special for Googlebot, will just randomly flip between them and then collect the data. If you're doing that approach, you're not cloaking. Cloaking is returning different content to users than to search engines. That's it. So if you take an MD5 sum on Unix of the page from users and the page that Googlebot gets, and the MD5 sum is the same, you're not cloaking. The other thing is that don't do anything special for Googlebot. If you have in your JavaScript code, if user agent equals Googlebot, or IP address equals Googlebot range, then that's something to be careful about. But you'll notice that when I go to Google, it does different things depending on your IP address. It will show you google.fr versus google.com. So it's okay to do different things based on your IP address. The only thing to be careful about is if you have one IP address that you call the country of Google, and whenever visitors from the country of Google come, as if they're Googlebot, then you do something special or different for them. So that applies whether you're using JavaScript or not. But doing testing is totally fine. We want people to be able to test and find the most effective ways of getting things. In fact, I'll give you a usability tip. If you guys have ever seen, how many people here, oh please, 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 how many people here use Chrome? Yes. No? You don't trust Chrome? You don't like Chrome? It's too slow? What? I am mortally offended you don't like Chrome. I'm sorry. You seemed like a very savvy guy. You were asking good questions. No, I'm kidding. Firefox? Yeah. Okay. You might try it again. It's pretty fast. I'll try it. Okay, thank you. So, by the way, some people think that Chrome secretly spies on everything you do whenever you're surfing the web. It does not. You can look at exactly what goes over the wire. Whenever you type things into Chrome, you've seen the useful suggestions I've been getting, but you can turn that off, or you can send it to a different search engine. You can send it to Firefox. You can send it to Bing. You don't need to be scared of Chrome. We love Chrome. It's available as open source. You can check the code. But here's something we discovered from A/B testing. If you put something that looks like a button that says download Google Chrome or try Google Analytics, people will click that button more often. Before that, we just had a link. And it turns out that the styling of making something look like a button, it's free, installs, all that sort of stuff. Having a button, more people will link, more people will buy your product. We discovered that through A/B testing. So we want people to be able to try to do different variations and find out what returns the best, conversion rate for you. Great question.
We were talking about JavaScript links, but so you can discover JavaScript links, but does it pass PageRank? If you internal PageRank?
JavaScript links can pass PageRank, yes. Sometimes I answer questions really long, so I'd rather just be. Yes.
Hi. Sorry about my English.
Much better than my French.
I have a few questions. First, will you switch all Google search in HTTPS?
No. This is a great question. So, if you go to Google, google.com, and let me say Google in English, okay? This is HTTP. But if you want to, you can go to google.com and you can go to HTTPS. And you see this little SSL. It's beta. A member of my team worked on this. He did the main heavy lifting on this. I'm really proud of this. What is this? This encrypts your search. So I'm on Wi-Fi right now. If I search from here, I can search for, anything I want. This institution, this cafe, they can't see what I'm typing. So it's an encrypted connection. So it helps your privacy. Your ISP, your cafe, your hotel, your government, your boss, they can't see what you're searching for. Now, if there's a keylogger on your machine, if your machine is hacked, the hackers might be able to see it. And Google still saves the search because we use it to improve our search quality, but no one in between can see it. But this is not perfect. It slows your computer. It doesn't slow your computer. It slows your search down a little bit. Because to encrypt the connection so that you and I can secretly talk, we have to do these secret handshakes. And so while we're doing that, it takes a little bit of extra time. I already showed you how we do all this work to return Google search results faster with the data centers. So we're probably not going to turn that on by default. We have no plans to do that at this time. The other thing to know is that it turns off referrers. Because if you're going from an SSL website to a non-SSL website, no referrers are shown. And we're sensitive to that. So we don't intend to turn it on by default for everyone. Here's a quick pro tip. If you run an SSL website, you will see the referrer. So if you wanted to, you could make a www and a HTTPS version of your website, and then you would be able to see the referrers. So I love this. I love the idea that I can do a private encrypted search, but we don't intend to turn this on by default. Do you want to ask another? Yeah.
Hello? Yes. I have a website, and I sell some stuff, and I would like to sell some adult stuff, you know. And I would like to know if Google say, oh, some adult words, so maybe it's spam or something like that. How do you consider that?
So let me see if I understand your question.
Maybe some word like Viagra, or I don't know. But
I talk about Viagra. Yeah, I just talked about it like more than is healthy and normal, you know, during this talk. People might think he's a little obsessed with Viagra. Why
maybe you should.
Why is this always the example that Matt uses? I don't know.
Maybe you should think maybe it's spam or something like that. I don't know.
No, typically we usually think about spam on a page level. If you talk about a Viagra a lot and it's all over your pages and it's on a lot of pages, then we might think that your entire site is spammy. But you know, if you're just talking about it in one post on a blog, that typically wouldn't apply. We usually have very fine granularity, so we try to apply things in a very specific way. So if you're worried about it, you can always do the stuff that might be considered really spammy on a different blog or on a different website, but usually that's not a problem.
Really?
Yeah, usually yeah.
Okay.
Trust me, it's you know, I talk about, I've done a blog where I talk about, you could be the SEO that does this particular niche, or you could be the SEO that talks about this niche. And I said the word niche like 50 times. You could be the SEO that does this. You could be the SEO that does this. You could be the SEO that does videos. You could be the funny SEO. You could be the SEO that does rap. And after it was over, some people were like, you're basically keyword stuffing for SEO. You repeated that like 20 times in one paragraph. I didn't even think about that. And I'm not worried about that. And worst case, if that page is viewed as keyword stuffing, that's not going to affect the rest of my site. So personally, I wouldn't worry about it. Now, it's hard to know exactly what you do. So, you know, if you go crazy, then I can imagine. But if you're talking in any sort of normal way, I wouldn't worry about it.
I have a last question. I put on my blog some micro format, you know, for wish snippets, but it doesn't appear on Google search. I just would like to know how it works. Yeah, it works like in the tasty tool, but not on the search.
Great. So RDFA is something that's often used in the semantic web. You can mark up content and you can say, this particular restaurant got 5 stars, 10 reviews, the average price is this. Most people, when they fill out their rich snippets, they make a mistake the first time. It's like writing a program. It's hard to do perfectly without ever having a bug. So that's why we introduced this testing tool. It's available for free on google.com/webmasters. So if you've looked at your website in this tool and it works fine, you're in pretty good shape. I actually asked the Rich Snippets team about this recently, and they haven't updated the data in a while, but they're moving to updating the data roughly every month or so. And so they're hoping by the end of this quarter to be able to basically move to where sites are being picked up for rich snippets much faster. So if you've done it in the last few 2-3 months, then it might not have gotten picked up yet. And right now they have to sort of say, yes, this does look like it's valid rich snippets code, but they're moving to a system where everything is assumed to be valid unless someone specifically says there's a problem with this. So you should be in good shape. You might have to wait 6 weeks, maybe. It's hard to give an estimate, but you know, it might be 2 months, it might be a little bit more long, but as long as you've got this works okay, you should be in good shape. Now we don't promise it will always trigger, but we'll know it's there, and when we think it's relevant, it can trigger. So maybe one last question, is that? Sure. Yeah? Oh no, the one last question brought out like a whole bunch of people who really are one. Well, you've gotten to ask a lot, so why don't we go all the way to the back, or yeah, how about all the way to the back? I'm happy to stay as long as you guys want. It's just, you know, at some point, you've been... Ask all the questions you want. Okay.
Just one question. What about duplicate content in HTTP, the same content in HTTPS and in HTTP?
Yes, we detect that can be duplicate content, and we handle that perfectly fine. Most websites currently do not support HTTPS. They might allow a shopping cart or something like that. In fact, the only website that I can think of offhand that always uses HTTPS is PayPal. So you can make HTTPS do a redirect to HTTP, or what PayPal has chosen to do is if you go to www, it will redirect to the HTTPS version. And let me make that bigger. So you can see, in this case, they have chosen to always go to HTTPS. They want everything to be secure in PayPal. So we detect that and we return the HTTPS version. It's completely fine. In fact, it would be a little weird to not have identical content between the HTTP and the HTTPS. So don't worry about that at all. We'll collect them together as best we can and show what we think is the best one. You can always do a 301 or permanent redirect to the one that you'd like to show up in the search results, though. Great question.
What about tweets indexing? How do you choose to rank tweets and when?
Fantastic question. How do you choose when to rank tweets and when? If it shows up in the web search results, there's literally nothing different. It's PageRank, it's the links to a site, it's how well that page matches. So in my presentation, I showed SEO Camp, Matt Cutts. Those were web results. They were literally ranking because people had linked to twitter.com/SEO Camp, and the page happened to have the words Matt Cutts at the time. There was literally no difference in the ranking. We do have, let's take Obama as an example again. Because if I search for Sarkozy and it's something strange, then I don't want to offend anyone or cause any problems. So discussions, and then I'm having a little trouble with my French. Oh, wait, I think I might. Haha. Obama. Okay. Updates. And latest. Now we also have, in fact, let me make it a little smaller. We also have what's known as real-time search, and that is a different situation altogether. We struck a deal with Twitter to get access to what they call their fire hose. That's all of the tweets. So if you go to our real-time search, you search for Obama, and you can see people tweeting about Obama over time. I think people are going to sleep or something in the United States. They're not tweeting as much. So here's a tweet that happened seconds ago. This one happened 57 seconds ago. This is real-time search. So we can index this stuff very fast. Most people don't know that we also will take all of the results for your search, and we will show the top web results. So I'm a little worried. I don't know what will happen if I search for me. Maybe I'll search for SEO Camp instead. So in this case, there weren't people really linking as much to websites, but you can sort of see what people are talking about as far as, you know. Yeah. So I won't do too much of a live demo, but you can sort of see this stuff can scroll by. So that is people specifically asking for it. Whenever it's in the web search results, it literally is just the number of links and how it looks on the page. It's no different than any other web page.
Sorry for my bad English. How can I say? Do you think that the Facebook like button will change the system of ranking, and especially for the advertisers? And generally, how Google does integrate the social research on their result?
Facebook. You ask interesting questions. Let me praise Facebook for a second. Facebook and Twitter are fantastic at helping regular people create content. Blogging can be a pain in the butt. Blogging takes a lot of time. I started doing videos because I couldn't write a blog post and do it in under an hour. I write slowly. I think about each word. How is this going to be analyzed? With Twitter, I can write 100 tweets in an hour. And I don't worry about it. You know, it's like, oh, well, it's a throw-off. It's gone. Facebook. My mom is on Facebook. Oh, is my mom on Facebook. My mom is on Twitter. My mom does have a blog, but that's relatively rare for a lot of people. So Twitter and Facebook deserve a ton of credit for getting regular people to participate. I was in the Rome airport yesterday, flying to Paris, and 2 of the people were using the pay-as-you-go internet, and they were both using it to surf Facebook. So regular people are participating on the net, and that's a good thing. The interesting thing is Google can only rank what it can crawl. So I talked about making your site crawlable. If something is not exposed because it's behind a password or it's private, we won't see it when we crawl. So we won't be able to return it. So there's this strange tension where Facebook wants their content to be public so that it can be returned. And that might be good. If people are talking and there's a useful discussion on Facebook, we could return it, just like there's useful tweets. But that's a matter for a website owner, Facebook, or for you if you control a Facebook account on whether to make it public or not. So for me, I think the social web is good when it's open. We have a system called Buzz. I've actually been using it more and more. It's all based on open protocols. Last week, we introduced APIs. So Seismic can now, I believe, post to Buzz, TweetDeck. And you can pull stuff out of Buzz. You don't have to use Gmail if you don't want to. So I think open standards are fantastic. I think they're important. I think the social graph has the potential to change search. Because if I can ask friends what is the right restaurant to go to and they can give me a good recommendation, I trust it a little bit more. So we introduced social search late last year, but that's again based off of profiles or web pages that we can crawl. So if something's locked behind a password or a login where we can't see it or crawl it, then it can affect things. So Facebook is an interesting topic. I do appreciate that they're getting more people participating in the web. I'm a big fan of open standards, so I hope whatever they do uses open standards going forward. Great question.
Just one last question. So.
Have you asked one yet? Maybe we'll 2? Yeah, okay.
Can you tell us about universal search, image, video and maps, and is there a specific spam report about it?
If there's specific spam
report about it.
That's a great question. So if I search for Tom Cruise, we can show news about Tom Cruise and images of Tom Cruise and that sort of stuff. We try to detect if people are spamming, so you're welcome to do a spam report about it. We try to algorithmically show the best stuff that we can. So, you know, I think that Universal is very helpful because some people don't know how to use search engines as well as you guys do. So if they can get a little bit of a tip that you can go to this other site, I think that can be really nice. But we don't want spam to show up in search through here either. So we do take spam reports. If you know of a specific example, let me know afterwards. I'd be interested in it. Last question. Last question?
You said you consider the JavaScript links in the algorithm. Did you consider the reducing links in the algorithm?
I missed the last.
Reduce, short links.
The site links,
sorry.
yeah. So. Oh, thank you.
On Twitter.
Thank you. So there was a really good blog post. By Danny Sullivan, where he said, which URL shortening should you use? And he actually said, he looked at Bitly, Kligs, he looked at 74 different ones, and he asked, does it do a 301 or permanent redirect? And if it does, then it flows PageRank. And that's a good one to use. But not all of them do. For example, here are a few that do temporary redirects, and those tend not to flow PageRank. So I would sort of avoid these. If you search for Danny Sullivan URL shortener. But what we do is we don't treat URL shorteners any differently. We see a link, we go to fetch that page. If it does a redirect, we transparently follow it, and then we just index the destination page. So if we're crawling a web page that happens to be Twitter and we find a link, if it's no followed, then we would follow that link and index it as normally. I kind of wish Twitter would allow URL characters not to count towards the 140, because then people wouldn't have to use URL shorteners. I dislike it when I don't know where a URL is going to go until I click it. That's a little bit scary. But it works just fine. Those links get indexed. So thanks for the question. Wow, fantastic Q&A. I should have just not done the presentation at all and just done nothing but questions and answers, but I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me in Paris. I really appreciate it. And if you see this guy, tell him to use Chrome instead of Firefox later on. So.